to Hillary and keep control of the party, because that's where the power and the money is. And that's right. That's why Bob Dole says, "Oh well, I'm going to oversleep," he says, if Ted Cruz is the nominee. You know, they are interested in controlling the party. And any candidate, and Ben Carson would have been another one, and maybe Donald Trump was one too, and I know Brian's here for Donald Trump, but any candidate that threatens the stranglehold that they have on our party, on the Republican Party, and it's similar on the Democrat side, different values, but still, it's power and money. Any candidate that threatens that system, that's who they hate, and that's who they fight over and fight against. So, any other comments about yes?
The video, what I liked about it, what you did is, his big thing is, oh, Matt Lynch didn't pay his taxes. You said that right out there. Correct. I did not pay my taxes on time, but everybody got paid, and the reason why was, okay, medical bills. Boom. Short and sweet, the truth, that's all that was needed, people would move on.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that, and I appreciate that, is that Dave Joyce, Dave Joyce lives in my hometown. He lives in Bainbridge Township. He knew my first wife. He knows what happened. So it's not like, oh, he's misunderstood. Same thing with my daughter's fall. He knows that story. So it's not like he's confused. He knows exactly what he's doing. So, and I appreciate the story. Okay, well, time is going, but I have to. All right, Kim, did you want to say something about it before?
Yeah, I've seen that video before, and I've heard this story, and I always personally take two things out of it. First of all, just about everybody has been touched by cancer in some way. Everybody has a friend, family member who has gone through trials and tribulations with that disease. So I think from that respect, it touches the heartstrings and people really relate to it because they're like, yeah, I know what that was like. Yeah, I know what it's like to have those medical bills and be burdened with that. And then also take a step further and just try to imagine what it would have been like to be left with three, daughters, teenagers, grieving, trying to grow up and become a woman without their mom. I mean, I can't imagine what that would be like. And so I would think that most people would sort of, feel along those lines as well. But the other thing that I take out of it, for me, is the real story of how America is such a wonderful place that you can go through something like that, and still pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It might take 12 years, right? But you're able to survive and you're able to thrive. And I don't know of any other place in the world where you'll be able to do that. And to me, that's the real story behind that video and behind your experience. So I just wanted to.
Thank you. That's a wonderful sentiment. Thank you. All right, I've got to sit down, but I need 3 minutes because I have to say this. It's something I've been thinking about, and actually I was reading about it this morning. The Bible says that it's when we're weak that God is strong, right? So that's part of the dynamic in Christianity is, is to step aside and let God do the work.
Yeah.
And there are two wonderful stories in the Old Testament. One is about Gideon, and one is about the Israelites when they went to the Promised Land. Now, I have to tell these really quick, but if you go to the story of the Israelites, when they wandered the desert for 40 years. Well, the reason they wandered for 40 years is because when they came to the Promised Land, Moses sent scouts. And the scouts spent 40 days roaming the Promised Land to see what it was like. And the scouts came back and said, this is a great place, flowing with milk and honey. But it's occupied. There are giants in the land. And all the Israelites got scared. And they got scared, even though God had parted the sea and sent the plagues and all that stuff. They got scared, and they didn't want to go. And God said, well, you don't have faith in me. You're going to wander the desert a year for every day they scouted the land. For 40 years they wandered the desert. That's what happens when we don't have enough faith. We wander the desert. Gideon, different story. Gideon went to fight the Midianites. Midianites, I think that's the way to say it. Somebody the other night said it's the stalactites, but he goes to fight the Midianites. He's got an army of thousands. And as he's marching towards the battlefield, the Lord says, Gideon, your army's too big. If you win with this army, everyone's going to think it was the army that won and not me, not God fighting for you. So send a bunch of these people home. And he sent home like 2/3 of his army. And they got to the river across from the battlefield, and the Lord said, it's still too big. You still got too many people. And he went through this whole kind of odd process, but they sent a bunch more people, and they only had 300 men left. 300 men against an army of thousands. And there's more to the story, we don't have time for it, but the next day, it was a rout against the Midianites. The Midianite camp was overrun by the 300. They conquered the Midianites because Gideon believed, here's the thing, when God talks to you, believe it. Okay? So, in the end, as I said to someone earlier, it's only our job to be obedient, and then God will bring the victory. So please pray. Please help any way you can. Please make telephone calls, and let's just be obedient so that on March 15th, God can bring the victory to Matt Lynch and Kim Laurie and Linda O'Brien and Greg Sasse, and bring really righteous kind of government to the United States of America once again. Thank you very much. And I've got to run, but there's signs and stuff back there.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, our next candidate is a candidate for Lake County Commissioner. 2 years ago, when she ran against someone by the name of Dan Troy. Anybody hear of Dan Troy? Yeah. Well, probably is about as well known a name in Lake County as there is. She came within a whisker of beating him. So, with that, I'd like to introduce Kim Laurie, who is running for Lake County Commissioner. Please give her a warm welcome.
Hi, everyone. So at the beginning of the meeting, Chuck said I was the feature speaker tonight. I'm nothing special. It's only because I was the only one who was able to stick around till the end of the meeting. So, up until Tuesday, my plan was to start tonight by thanking my opponent for showing up. I know what it's like to walk into a room and wonder if people are going to be friendly or respectful or nice to you. It takes courage to do that. Now, we know in reality he has nothing to be afraid of. You guys are probably the most kind-spirited and respectful people that I know. But he is being told stories about you. So somebody told him something that scared him away. But we know that if he had been here tonight, you would have been just as objective, just as respectful, just as kind to him as you are to me. Personally, I think it tells something about somebody's character when they commit to appearing and then just a few days before back out. We've heard our speakers prior to me talking a lot about courage. Courage is not an absence of fear, but it's putting your head down and going forward despite the fear that you're feeling. And if there was any reason for him to be afraid tonight, he still should have come here, and he still should have shown us that he's a man of courage, because politics is not easy, and you're not always going to be walking into a room full of friends. So, a candidate who shows courage over and over and over is somebody that we need when they're going into an office where, right now the county commissioners, the board of commissioners is run by Democrats. We have 2 seats available this year, and we may be able to get 2 Republicans elected, and that would be great, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Let's say he's the only one elected, and he has 2 Democrats by him. Is he going to stand up for our values? Is he going to be courageous? Or is he just going to shy away because they're not going to agree with him? On Saturday at the Lake County Republican Party endorsement meeting, when he was speaking, he mentioned, nobody cares about matricular consular cards. Well, most people don't know what a matricular consular card is, which is the reason I explained what it is. And when people realize that it is an informal identification card that is distributed by the Mexican consulate, given to Mexicans who travel abroad. The FBI has done has done a lot of research. They've published reports talking about how the matricular consular card is easy to replicate. It increases our threat of drug cartels, terrorists, because it's easy to replicate. They can create these, and it's a major threat for America. Now, when people hear about that, they care about that because people care about illegal immigration. And we have a problem with illegal aliens in our country, in our county, in Lake County, and we know this, and we care about this. And for him to say, well, nobody cares about that, well, how out of touch is he? You know, he was talking about regionalization. Nobody cares about regionalization. Regionalization is good because sometimes you might have to share services because it saves money. Well, for those of you who have been here before, maybe 6 months ago or so, I did a presentation on regionalism. And one of my very first slides explained the difference between regionalism and collaboration. Collaboration is what he's referring to. Collaboration is if you have neighboring cities and they can't both afford to have their own fire department. They might share services. That's not considered regionalism if one city maintains ownership of the capital and then the other city pays for usage. They're basically renting, okay, we're going to, we need a fire truck tonight, there's a fire, so we're going to compensate you for letting us use your fire truck, okay? You're not mixing tax dollars. What regionalism does is it is pooling our tax dollars, where if you live in one city and that city decides to have a partnership with your neighboring city, yet they decide to pool their tax dollars and purchase shared resources, you still are only voting for the people that represent your city. So you have no say in what the people representing the other city might want to do with your tax dollars. That's regionalism. Okay, that's the difference. And he very clearly doesn't understand that that's the difference because of the way that he was talking about it on Saturday. Now, his big thing, what I have seen for the most part from my opponent is economic development. Economic development. Jobs, 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 economic development. It sounds great. But how is he planning to actually accomplish this? In November, at the Lake County Republican Party Executive Committee meeting, he was talking about how he formed a campaign committee on economic development. And he mentioned that the members of his committee are from the Port Authority. Now, if we know anything about the Port Authority, we know that what they do is they take our tax dollars and they provide risky loans to businesses who couldn't get those loans through banks. Why are we risking our tax dollars to help pick and choose the winners in the free market? That's not the free market. The Port Authority is a big government Democrat department, okay? Judy Moran, who is the Democrat commissioner that we are vying for to run against in November, when she put out her press release stating that she was going to be running again, she said, my priority for my second term is going to be to expand economic development through the Port Authority. So what is the difference between her plan and his plan? And does it make it better? Is it a better plan because somebody with an R after their name is operating it? To me, I don't think so. If we want to develop economic growth in our county and create more jobs, the government has to get out of our way. Government does not create jobs unless you're making the government bigger. The way to create jobs and attract more businesses is to get out of the way, stop spending as much money, be able to cut taxes, lower regulations, so that the businesses can thrive on their own without having to work around red tape in the county. So that's basically my opponent, his story. I don't know how many of you saw his Facebook post recently where he took words out of context. Chuck had sent a letter out to Lake County Republican Party basically supporting Matt Lynch and myself. And he said something nice about my opponent. And my opponent decided to take that one sentence and posted on his Facebook as a quote from Chuck, Executive Director of the Lake County Liberty Coalition, and made it look like he has your support. He wasn't willing to come here and talk to you guys tonight, even though he's supposed to be a conservative. You would think walking into a room of conservatives would appear to be a friendly environment for him. But he's not willing to be here tonight, but he's willing to take Chuck's words out of context to give himself support from you. That is the lack of integrity that we are so tired of from our politicians. And he'll say, well, I'm not a politician, I've never held office before. Well, you act like one. And he's gonna be a good politician. And he's the establishment's choice for us, and aren't we tired of the establishment choosing our candidates for us? And I just have to say one more thing about this, because it really perturbs me that he was afraid to come here tonight. As you guys know, I walk into a room of hostile people monthly when I go to the executive committee meetings for the Lake County Republican Party. As the central committee woman, okay, I walk into a room now knowing that I might be ambushed by the chairwoman of the party with fraudulent emails that I didn't write, but somebody else wrote them to make them look like I did. And she accuses me of it in front of over 100 central committee members, elected officials, other candidates, members of the public. That's what I might walk into when I go in there on Monday. Who knows? We know what happened to me last year after the primary when I was up for their endorsement. And I should have received the endorsement because I received the endorsement of the, I don't remember, 15, 20,000 Republicans who had voted in the primary. I was good enough for them. But instead of just receiving the Lake County Republican Party's endorsement and being accepted by my party, by my own party, I was interrogated by the second vice chair. There's so many chairs I can't keep track of who sits in which one. I was interrogated for a full hour at that first meeting, and they still couldn't come to the realization that, hey, you know what, the voters nominated her, we should probably support the decision of the voters, that they tabled it and did it again the following meeting the next month. That's what I walk into when I go to those meetings. And for him to not be willing to come and talk to you guys tonight, there is no courage. And all I can do is hope and pray that you guys see that I'm up here and I'm doing what I think is right, even in the face of, well, that's not the popular thing, or, you might get attacked by the party. And so it's only by the grace of God that I'm able to just continue doing it. And it's because I know that when I go forward and I stand in front of them, that you guys are behind me. Because there's no way I'd be able to face that without troops behind me.
I'm all for you, but did he give a legitimate excuse for not being here?
He, in his email, when I asked him why he wasn't going to be here tonight, he only said that he didn't think that this would be an objective forum, basically because we have expressed support for Kim in the past, and therefore that we would not give him an objective forum.
Okay, well
That's,
in other words, it's a chicken.
well, those are his words, but I need to expand a little bit on the story that Kim told about that Facebook post. There's a little bit more to it, and that is that when I became aware of that post, and it looked like it was an endorsement from me to Jerry Serino, I added a comment to it explaining the context.
Yeah.
That those were my comments, but that was just part of the letter, and that the rest of the letter indicated that I was recommending Kim Laurie to be supported by the party. and be endorsed. Within, I don't know, it was 30 minutes or less, after I added that clarification, that post was removed entirely.
The post.
The Facebook post, yes. So that I think explains the intent of the post, as well as what, they didn't really want that context out there.
And that post had been up for 4 days before it was discovered. So for 4 days, people were seeing it. People were thinking that the Lake County Liberty Coalition, or Chuck Laughlin individually, as the executive director of the Lake County Liberty Coalition, was supporting or endorsing. The words were not there, "I'm endorsed by," right? But if you put a quote that's favorable to you, the candidate, and especially if you don't just say Chuck Laughlin, the individual, it's Chuck Laughlin, the executive director of the Lake County Liberty Coalition, people are going to read it as an endorsement. And it was up for 4 days. People were liking it, all this wonderful stuff. And then literally within minutes, I think it might have been 10 minutes of him posting that, because I remember I read it, and then I was going to get a screenshot of the post with his comment, because I did manage to get a screenshot of just the post itself. And by the time I turned my computer on and logged on to Facebook, it was gone.
That's what I was gonna ask you, if you got a screenshot.
You can't run away from who you're running for somebody, you have to stand up for what you believe in.
That's what I was gonna ask you, Chuck, if you had gotten a screenshot of your comment.
I did take a picture of it with my phone because I had looked at it prior to it being removed.
Yeah.
And so it was still cached on the phone, and I did get a picture of it. So I have a picture of the original post as well as my comment.
So he was gonna come, but then he decided not to.
Pardon me?
He was gonna come, but then he decided not to.
Tuesday he decided he wasn't coming, yes.
Oh, you can't do that.
Are any other questions for Kim?
Joan, did you have your hand up there?
Couple of things.
Hold on, let me get the mic to you.
No, it's
So
okay, I can speak, I've taught for years, I've got a loud voice. I'm the one that saw that post, or my husband was, it accidentally came in on our, well, we just saw it, okay, we saw it, and so we called Chuck, we told him about that. But the thing that bothered me on Saturday, when Sereno got up, and he said that regionalism could be solved by economic development in Lake County. He doesn't know anything about regionalism if he says that's the way it can be solved. And that irritated me the most. And we were supposed to get up and be able to talk. And I wanted to challenge him on that. And of course, we weren't allowed to say anything afterwards when they started to do the vote.
Yeah,
By the way, I'm a member of the GOP. Conservative member of the GOP.
Yeah, she's one of the few GOP Central Committee members that actually will stand up for the right principles. So that was one of the.
Stand up, and now I have an opponent. I have to fight for my position if I want to get back up. And I kind of wonder why.
I have a feeling if they were able to find somebody in my little precinct, they would have found someone to run against me too. But I think I'm one of 9 Republicans.
She's not under the incumbent protection clause, you mean?
I think my opponent is an honorary member of the Incumbent Protection Program. That's something that I hadn't mentioned as far as the procedures that occurred at Saturday's meeting, the Republican Party endorsement meeting. I did not request the endorsement. I don't know if everybody is aware of that or not. Personally, I don't think that the party should be sticking their nose in the primaries, trying to influence the voters. I think it's up to the candidates to express to the voters who we are, what we stand for, and let the voters decide who they think would best represent them individually. And then the party should get behind that person that the voters choose rather than trying to manipulate their opinions ahead of time. So because I feel so strongly about that, I decided not to request the endorsement because I felt like if I feel very convicted about this, but then I say, but if you're going to endorse, I'd like to be considered, I'd be a hypocrite. So that's why I chose not to request the endorsement. But of course my opponent did, and he was lobbying very very hard. I heard he was calling just about all of the Central Committee members to try to get their votes. On a side note, I wonder how...
He knew better.
Oh, okay, so he might have had the do not call list too. But yeah, I kind of wonder how he got everybody's phone numbers, because I've requested contact information for my fellow Central Committeemen because I think it would be good if we could all talk to each other. And I was told that there is no such list. Phone numbers or email addresses apparently. So when I have to contact my fellow Central Committee members, I have to mail a letter. It costs like $70 to pay for the postage, but that's okay.
I do have a question about the meeting on Saturday. I'm sort of a newbie on this whole thing, so I really I wondered, since we weren't allowed to ask any questions, and the candidates were only given 4 minutes, I don't know of anyone in this world that could, in 4 minutes, convince anybody of anything. What happens? Do the committee, the Central Committee, do they discuss among themselves? How do they decide who they vote for?
That would make too much sense to allow the Central Committee time to have an open discussion and dialogue. So what they ended up doing was, and again, they did not announce this ahead of time, right? So we couldn't walk in there prepared with this information. So what they notified us of after the members of the public and the other candidates had left the room is that only 2 people could speak on behalf of any particular candidate, and each of those people were limited to 1 minute. And there were some Central Committee members who had a statement prepared, and they probably spent a long time working on that statement, getting it just right, you know, maybe fretting over having to get up in front of the group and talk. You know, not everybody's comfortable doing that. I'm not, most people aren't, you know. So it takes a lot of personal investment to do something like that. We had one person get up and say, I'd like to speak on behalf of Matt Lynch. I have a prepared statement. I can read it, you know, I won't be distracted or anything, but it's going to take 2 minutes. And they wouldn't allow him 2 minutes. So how was he supposed to know that his prepared statement needed to be only 1 minute long, because they didn't tell us?
Yeah.
And there were more than 2 candidates who wanted to speak on behalf of Matt Lynch.
Oh.
I'm not candidates, Central Committee members.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed to. Now there was one gentleman who had stood up, and he talked about Congress in general. He didn't say, I'm speaking for Matt or I'm speaking for Dave. He just, I think Congress should do this about Obama, right? They counted him towards Matt. And so they actually gave Dave a 3rd person to talk on behalf of Dave. But understand, going into this, everybody already knew who they were going to be voting. I mean, everybody already picked their horse, you know, so I suppose in reality, an open discussion would have just, you know, been like talking to the wall. But out of principle, it seems like.
Well, I knew that. That was the first meeting. That was the first meeting. That was the first meeting that I had attended, and it was obvious to me that when I saw Dale Fellows up there helping them, showing them where to hang the sign for Dave Joyce, I just knew right away that they had already decided, and this whole thing was really just a show. So I was saying to myself, this is very representative of what is going even at the local level. I can imagine what happens at the state and at the federal level, and that for any candidate that is not willing to come and talk to the people,